Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the M3 Market Update. This show, I try to do this weekly to kind of give everyone context around what's going on in the housing and commercial real estate market. So there's a lot of conflicting data right now, and as I say each week, there's a lot going on. So just want to start out with a couple of show notes. Thank you so much for everybody that subscribed. I'm a little overwhelmed by how many have. And if I haven't gotten to your comment, I'm doing my best to try to get caught up. The Wealthy On video brought in a lot of you over, which I'm very appreciative to both Danielle DiMartino Booth and Adam Taggart for making that happen. So it's great, but just a couple of things. One, I'm kind of low budget at the moment. I work full time. I have many clients who are very demanding. And so this is kind of a low key production at the moment. I understand, it'd be great with charts and graphs and all that good stuff. And one day I'll get there. But at the moment, I'm really trying to juggle all of the research, the site visits, the Substack, staying ahead on what's going on in macro, and then this YouTube. So bear with me. I do hope in the future it'll get better and I'll be able to spend more time on production, including charts and graphs, etc. It's not necessarily that I don't know how, it's just that I don't actually have the time to do that. Now, if any of you is looking for an internship or want to donate some cool tools to help me, I will not say no, but bear with me if otherwise. So thanks again for coming back. Again, it was another confusing week. We had some conflicting data. Existing sales were down, but home prices were up. So what I want to explain to everybody is that I think that we'll probably see a couple more months of home prices like this. Remember that the denominator is smaller because sales were down in many cases. Now I'm going to talk about that a little bit because so from the National Association of Realtors, sales were down, but in the cities I track, my sales were up. And so I think that's really got to do with the data source. So for instance, I used Redfin so I can get real-time city level sales information month over month. And Redfin doesn't have as many of kind of the new builds. So it's a very different mix of things. So it's not apples to oranges in terms of what NAR is looking at versus Redfin. And so that's why some of this can be very confusing. And I talk a lot about this in my Substack in general. It's very important which data source you're looking at and understand, basically what information they have. I talk, specifically Realtor.com has a ton more listings typically than Zillow and Redfin. There's a couple of different reasons for that. It can depend on how many of the MLS services they're connected to. It can depend on how many new build or builder sites they're connected to. So it's a very messy, muddy picture. And so you kind of always have to know what you're looking at when you look at each one. So for instance, I saw a lot of people posting some Zillow charts about home prices. Again, Zillow has a pretty small population compared to, say, someone like Realtor.com. So that is why I talk to you every week, because this stuff can be very difficult to contextualize and understand. Another thing that we got this week that was a little shocking to me, although not really if I think about my narrative, but mortgage applications were up. Now, this is when rates have hit some of their highest levels we've seen in a very long time. And those the applications were up primarily driven by refinances. And so I posted that out there on Twitter this week, just trying to get everybody to be thinking, why would mortgage applications for refinances be up right now? Well, you've probably heard a commercial on the radio talking about, hey, you can take some of the equity out of your home and pay down high interest credit card debt. So that's one reason. So there could be a lot of different things going on where people are needing to tap into their equity and maybe do not necessarily want to sell their home. And, and they're even willing to take that higher rate, maybe because their credit card debt is much higher. So, but this is counter to the narrative that we hear out there that the consumer is strong. I've talked to you about seeing the early delinquencies in the FHA VA population, as well as Fannie and Freddie. and that kind of persisted. We had a lot, at least in the books that I oversee, more loans kind of roll to that 60+ day delinquency. Now, I've talked to you guys before in mortgage, and if you haven't seen it, check out my loss mitigation deep dive. Anything that goes after 60 is going to get caught up in the loss mitigation programs if they are able to pay. And even if they aren't going to be able to qualify for a modification, they'll get caught up in that process, sometimes 90 to 120 days. So anybody that tells you foreclosures are about to go crazy, that's just not accurate. It takes a very long time for that to happen. The early stress I'm seeing right now, we probably won't see foreclosures increase materially until we get into next year, and maybe even by the second quarter. So foreclosures are not part of my thesis, really. I do believe they're going to play a part. And I'm also was a little shocked about how quickly we are seeing this early delinquency. And so this early delinquency, the 30 plus, that is what we call the death cross in mortgage, because it's when you kind of give up on your credit. And the people that I'm seeing go delinquent right now are your FHA, VA borrowers, and primarily kind of your investors. And then, this just happens. Somebody's losing their job. So death, divorce, default, and the DOD are kind of some of the things that can cause movement in the mortgage market. So, lots going on in terms of conflicting data. Okay, so we've got sales down, prices up. We've got mortgage applications up for refinances. So a lot of messiness. And then we have the permit data. And so what are permits? That's when your builders go and say, hey, I want to record a permit because I want to build something. And those were actually up this month. Starts were down and completions were up. And so a lot of times people look at permits as a way to gauge the health of the housing industry. Well, we're in the middle. I would take it with a grain of salt because we also heard builder confidence was down. So you can see it's a lot of up, down, up, down. And a lot of this has to do with the way the data is collected. And I can tell you very much that, and let me just state, I don't believe this is 2008. It's a different crisis. There are different drivers, and people want to focus on 2008 versus focusing on the drivers and the path that is ahead. And so I'm not going to waste any time, talking about 2008. I will tell you that when I look out there, it feels like we have the housing market of, say, 2006, 2007 on top of a banking crisis, similar to kind of what we saw during the GFC with Lehman and Bear Stearns. And so it's not exact, but what we pay attention to here on this show is the path and what's going on. But the path right now, because of all of these new builds, which I document on the road, all of the short-term rental, all of the long-term rent and build to rent, all of the multifamily, etc., as well as the increased costs for property taxes and insurance for your regular borrower. All of these things are setting us on a path where, believe it or not, when everyone out there is telling you that we don't have inventory, they're talking about listings for sale. And that's very different from not having housing inventory. And so it's my belief that we have plenty of housing inventory. It's just kind of sitting on the sidelines right now. However, per the Fed, which I've talked to you guys before, the Fed uses realtor.com, but per the Fed, inventory was actually up in August. And that is a trend that is persisting, which many people consider this time to be non-seasonal. And you can hear from the anecdata that was on Twitter and other social media outlets, certain smaller investors and some larger ones are starting to panic as they are not cash flowing. And they go, what people have been able to do to get through this time has been to go access some credit. Either, there's all kinds of ways they can access credit. They can take out hard money loans. They can, especially those all cash buyers that maybe didn't have a mortgage, they can refi, if they need the cash. And so because there's a huge home repair. But what's happening is a lot of that credit is being shut down due to our credit crunch, and the banks pulling back, the non-banks pulling back, everybody's pulling back. So they go to try to extend and pretend, which has worked so well when rates were so low, and that option is just not available to them. So this takes time, but we're starting to see it. We're seeing, I have been seeing inventory increase on a net basis since January in key cities, and we'll go over that in just a moment. So the idea that, I say this a lot, but real estate is local until it's not. And right now it is still local, although, there are certain trends and drivers I'm starting to see kind of all across the country. And I do believe that we will start to see inventory increase. We're definitely going to see new build inventory increase, because as these builders try to meet their guidance of how many homes they're going to complete, while at the same time rates are this high and their margins are getting compressed because of all the concessions and buy downs they're doing, the inventory for new builds are going to increase, as well as existing inventory. I'm hearing more and more from people that, are listing their homes and realize, maybe this is the time to sell, because they're getting nervous by what they're seeing in the market. And I think that that's just going to increase, especially as boomers realize, what? Why am I doing long-term rental? Or why am I carrying this cost of this home when I could take that cash and I could put it in a short-term treasury, I could put it in a money market fund, and I could make some money. So these decisions are starting to circulate for everyone. And as we kind of round the corner to year end, I think that the denial is probably it's coming to a close in some respects. Now, similar to last time, there will be things that happen that make this thing look like it's turning around. For instance, right now rates are screaming high, but if there was a credit event and rates kind of came down, you would probably see a lot of refi activity and things like that, even if not down far enough to be perfect to even refi out of what they have. And this kind of happened in 2010. We had a little refi boom once rates went down. And so there's still going to be some muddiness. There's still going to be some messiness. And this could take a very long time unless there is some sort of credit event or some exogenous event that kind of speeds this up. And we have the election in 24. So there's a lot of different things happening at once, which is why I'm here with you each week. Although it's usually each week to 10 days. Right now, I am technically homeless, meaning that I've been down in Miami with a client for the past couple of months. I'm headed back up to Tennessee. I'm going to do some more site visits. And so that's another reason I ask you to kind of bear with me on the production, because I am mobile at the moment. And hopefully soon I'll figure out exactly where I want to live. But like many of you, I'm at a point where I'm not exactly sure where I want to live, but I know one thing for sure. I am not going to be buying, and I'm not going to rent at these prices. And I think that, you can actually get some pretty good deals right now in terms of negotiating for rent. Seeing that in a lot of the cities that I track, rent specials, etc. So I'm actually looking forward to, if I decide to rent instead of buy, negotiating myself and taking advantage of that. But I am privileged enough, to be able to do this based on kind of availability of family members' Airbnbs and things, and client Airbnbs. So I'm not encouraging anyone else to do this. Let me put it that way. Okay. So in a bit of a rush, because I'm actually about to head out onto the road, hoping to go to Port St. Lucia today in Florida. So in the Substack this week, just quickly, I did go to Homestead, Florida. A lot of you that comment and say, hey, can you talk about Florida? We will be talking about Florida for a long time. And many of my Substacks focus on Florida. I would encourage you to go look at the Substacks this week. I have a couple of, poor quality videos because Melody did them. But I think that you'll get a sense of what I'm seeing out there. That's all I'm hoping for, is that you kind of start to understand the scale of how many of these new build communities are out there. And Homestead, Florida is a good example of what is an agricultural community, a lot of blue collar workers. And then out in the middle of what feels like a farmland, there's this massive development that says it's luxury, wanting to get north of $800,000, and the median income in Homestead is about $52,500. So, and the homes that are there are very modest. So this is, and just the amount of land is it's just shocking. So check out the Substack. I promise as soon as I get stationary, I'm going to do a couple of deep dives. One, I will definitely deep dive some more into Florida. But two, what I'm going to do, because I'm to the point where I can't track too many more cities, but I'm going to do a deep dive teaching you what to look for in your city or where you want to move to make sure that you are not caught unaware. So hopefully I'm going to do a kind of a tutorial just to tell you how to make a good decision, because a lot of you that have reached out are in the position where you need to make a decision, you need help, you feel overwhelmed, and I want to be able to help, even though I may not be able to track your specific city, but I will do my best. Okay, so quickly we're going to go over the stats. Now, a couple of things. This is where people are like, please just put them on the screen. I promise I will do that in the future. But for now, they're in the show notes so you can follow along, as well as you can go to the Substack and open that up and follow along as well. I kind of read them out quickly, but I'll also give some color and commentary. Feel free to skip this part as well. So, okay, without further ado, listings for sale were up again week over week, about 1.68% and 2.73% to the average. Okay, and that is a 12-week average. Now, I've heard from people as well. They're like, why aren't you doing year over year? Well, I'm pulling very granular information for cities that don't exist year over year. You usually can only get, this kind of information at the MSA or metro level, and I'm trying to dig in. But by the time we get to January, I will have a year over year. But what's important to me is I'm trying to see the movement between listings for sale, listings for rent, and short-term rental. And that's why I provide, information on all three. This week, I did do the monthly summary. So that is in the Substack for all the 70 cities. You can request that as a Google Doc. But okay, so but the most important thing to understand here is that inventory is up. It was up last week as well, and it's up in a meaningful way. And so what we're going to be looking for here is, does that trend persist? So this information is for the week of September 10th through the 17th. Hoboken was up at 11.43%, Encinitas at almost 9%, San Francisco at 8%, and Portsmouth up at 7.69%, Boston up at 7.43%. So inventory rising, we've seen Hoboken here, we've seen San Francisco, but Portsmouth and Boston, these are new kind of that I've seen in terms of inventory increasing. Now, again, a couple weeks does not a trend make, so we have to triangulate the data and look at it from multiple perspectives. Okay, so top cities with the largest percent increase in inventory compared to a 12-week average. Again, here, just trying to get a sense of, I think we're in a very atypical time. And so when most will tell you it doesn't make any sense to look week over week, to me, I'm trying to look for the early indicators. Okay, and so the average kind of, especially when we're starting to tick up in a non-seasonal trend, and I think because of just the unhealthiness, the different things happening in the housing market, that we do need to be looking at this granular level. So, okay, Westchester County up almost 21% to the average. San Francisco up almost 13% to the average. Now, San Francisco had taken a little breather, but it seems to be coming back. Rosemary Beach at almost 21%. Again, this is a very popular destination. When we get down to the section on Airbnb, you're going to hear about that it's always in the top when it comes to that average daily rate. But the fact that we see rentals up, we see listings for sale up, tells me that some people have decided, maybe this summer wasn't as profitable, or maybe it's just time they want to get out of either, the second home or the short-term rental or long-term rental business. Okay, so Rosemary, so I already said Rosemary Beach, sorry. Salt Lake City. Now, this is going to be interesting because Salt Lake City just knocked out one of the other cities from the top 10, and we haven't had a ton of movement in the top 10, but Salt Lake City is up at about 10.87% compared to average. Sedona is up 9.37% to average. Okay, so here's where we get into the top 10. And this is the top 10 cities with largest percent increase since I started tracking, which is January. And again, this is net increase, guys. So net from the start of the year, we have seen inventory build in these cities, which is contra to the narrative that there is no inventory and it's very scarce, which, listings for sale, I think, are not as robust as they've been. But one thing to keep in mind is think about where that number of 6 months in terms of what is a healthy supply of homes. I was doing some reading last week and I caught a sentence in the National Association of Realtors when they discuss, months of inventory. And essentially they said 6 months supports moderate home price appreciation. Okay, well, I don't know about you guys, but I don't think we need any more home price appreciation at the moment. And so maybe 3.3 months is exactly what we need. Now, of course, there are structural issues in that, but we won't get into that. Let's go to the top 10 real quick here. So San Ramon, this was something I actually tracked for a client. Smaller numbers, but still, this is a small area. And to see the new construction there really impact inventory is important. Up over 113% since January. San Francisco is up at 88.47%. Coeur d'Alene at 84.46%. Denver 65%. And this one is interesting because Denver is kind of becoming a new Phoenix. Every time you talk about Phoenix, people just get crazy. And I see this past couple of weeks, same with Denver. But if you look at demographics in Denver, you are definitely seeing, I think there's plenty of inventory there despite what others may be saying. Austin up at 50%. Now, why is Austin not as up as much as San Francisco? Maybe, well, because I started in January. We know that Austin already had issues. Additionally, if you check out one of my recent Substacks, it argued that almost anywhere from 25 to 50% of sales in Austin were happening outside of the listing services with something we call pocket listings, which everyone wants to argue aren't a thing, but they are a thing, especially with the advent of social media. Galveston was up at 46.72%. Portland up as well. Whoops, didn't have that percentage in the Substack. Need to add that, but probably somewhere around 45%. Salt Lake City up at 44%. Bozeman up at 41.7%. And Rosemary Beach was kicked out of the top 10 by Salt Lake City. Okay, quickly. Top cities with highest percent increase of single family rental listings for September 10th through the 17th. Listings for rent went up as well. So this is what's fascinating is you've got listings for sale going up and listings for rent at the same time. They were up over 2.18% week over week and 5.56% to the average. That is very interesting. So Cape May, tiny amount of homes there. So looks like big numbers, but they were up by 75%. And this is another big jump for them. Rosemary Beach up at 40%. Costa Mesa up at 21%. Winter Garden up 14%. Augusta up 10.4%. Okay, top cities with the highest percent increase of single family rental listings, so 14-week average. So Cape May, this is huge. To the average, up almost 200%. Again, small numbers, so don't get too excited. Rosemary Beach, almost up 81%. Augusta, 31.45%. Galveston, up at 30.87%. And Brattleboro, up at 29.6%. Now, these could be what you're seeing here is your short-term rentals maybe are going to get listed for long-term rent after kind of the summer season. That could be what's going on here. We'll continue to track it. And guys, I really am working to get more trending for you again, it's just time. I very busy at the moment. So again, if you know anybody that wants an internship, just let me know. Okay. I also try to track kind of the top cities with the highest percent of decrease of single family rental listings, because I think that if we watch this one, we might start to see trends of kind of moving from long-term rent to listing for sale. So Bozeman down 9%, Encinitas down 6.82%, Nashville down 6%, Stanford down 3.9%, and Westchester County down 3.66%. Okay, finally got August short-term rental numbers. Excited about that. And listings were up 4.87% compared to July. Now, this to me is just fascinating. In the news, we hear all about occupancy down for Airbnb, etc., but somehow we are still seeing increases in listings for short-term rental, and with things like what's going on in Dallas. So what I think is probably happening is, people continue to think that this could be a good idea and are confused about the saturation. So basically 14.28% year over year is the increase in short-term listings. So August 22 to August 23, 14% increase. Okay, top cities with highest decrease in short-term listings year over year. Of all 70 cities I track, only 3 had decreases in listings, guys. So that is very telling to me. Fort Myers down at 72%. San Diego, now Fort Myers was due to Ian, just FYI. San Diego down 4.63%, and Dallas down 4.32%, likely due to that recent, regulations and restrictions for short-term rental in Dallas. Okay, top cities with the highest percent decrease in short-term rental listings month over month. Augusta down 5.53%, Phoenix down 3.12%, Ventura County down 2%, Portsmouth down almost 2%, and Miami down 1.31%. Top cities with highest percent decrease in average daily rate year over year. So average daily rate is kind of that average what you would get for your Airbnb per night. Westchester down 32%, West Palm Beach down 24%, Winter Garden down 15%, Palm Springs down 12.44%, and Destin down 12.39%. Okay, top cities with highest average daily rate August of 23. So that's Newport Beach at $563, Rosemary Beach at number 2, $498, Cape May at $452, Ventura at $436, and Palm Springs at $411. And so for everyone but, so a little bit of decreases in some of the top 5 and then increases for others. So top cities with the highest average daily rate August of 2022. That's the comparison I was just looking at. In some cases, like Newport Beach, you got a little higher average daily rate in this August, but then in others, for instance, Cape May, a little lower. So, but Newport Beach last year was number 1 again at $560, Rosemary Beach at $545, Palm Springs at $469, Cape May at $448, and Encinitas at $408 as well. So, commercial real estate. So a lot going on there. Interesting articles about the FDIC not being able to sell some assets. There's, you're hearing about keys going back to the bank. You're hearing about defaults. So this is just going to continue. We've been talking about commercial real estate for almost a year. So I think that this isn't going away, and I think some people are still confused about how bad this is going to get. I personally argue that we have too much office space. It does work from home. Yes, it kind of exacerbated things, but we have just built like this builder bonanza out there in commercial real estate. You can see the cranes here in Miami. You can see the cranes in Nashville. The cranes are everywhere, and we don't have the demographics nor sort of our trajectory if, with technology and sort of moving toward AI, moving toward doing more things and kind of almost virtual reality. We're not all going to need to go into the office. And by the way, our infrastructure really can't support it. Where I am in Miami, and I've seen this in other of the Sun Belt cities like Charlotte and Nashville and Atlanta, and Dallas. The traffic is just terrible, and the roads are not great. And so we haven't even built to support this infrastructure. I don't even think we can support the existing amount of people coming into these cities. So I just don't think this is about work from home. I don't care if Jamie Dimon and the whole country goes back to work. We are still going to have significant issues in commercial real estate. And in the Substack, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes as well. There's a great YouTube with George Gammon, Jeff Snyder, and Kim McElroy about what's actually happening on the ground out there as people who cannot extend and pretend. Okay, sorry guys, rushed a little bit today, but I got to get on the road. Again, I apologize for this very low budget production. It's not really my standard either, but I'm very busy at the moment and still have to make a living. So bear with me. I do hope to improve in the future. So thank you for joining. If you have any questions, please, if you have to make a decision, please reach out to me. Just give me some time to respond. I'm still behind in on all the platforms in responding back. So, but I will do my best to get back to you. You can reach me on Twitter at m3_melody, MELODY, on LinkedIn at Melody Wright, WRIGHT, on Substack, M3 Melody Substack, and here on YouTube, M3 Melody YouTube. So thanks again, guys. I'm looking forward to stopping in a couple of key cities here in Florida on my way back up to Tennessee. Also hoping to get back to Nashville soon. So it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be a very interesting fall. So please stay tuned. And if you have any questions, please reach out. So have a great week, everybody. And thanks again for joining. Thank you.